Can a law really prevent a teenager from going on social media? Before France, it was Australia that tried it. They've been doing it for 6 months and the results aren't very convincing. Teenagers, of course, lie about their age, use VPNs, borrowed accounts. They've found every way to get around these bans. But we've already talked about that before. Just because a law can be bypassed doesn't mean it shouldn't be passed. In fact, Australia, since December 10, 2025, has imposed a ban on 10 social media platforms. For teenagers, it applies to those under 16. And 6 months later, the result is very mixed, at least for teenagers who had an account before this ban, and that's where it gets interesting. Those who were already using social networks are having a hard time quitting, and as a result, many have found ways to get around this ban. The study would show that more than 85% of this population found a way to get around the ban. On the parents' side, they say that the fact that it's a law still gives them an extra argument in their parenting in enforcing the ban. But they're not naive. They know that those who are already used to social networks will have a hard time getting out of it. That's one of the challenges of addiction. On the other hand, what Australian parents are saying is that this law will help them with children who haven't yet experienced social networks. And that's where we can draw our first conclusion. Once you've tried it, it's hard to quit. Whether it's kids or adults, let's also acknowledge our own problems. But a law like this can still create a new generation of users who haven't experienced social networks in their early childhood, who will have been able to develop other types of relationships, and maybe that's the most interesting part. Still, this kind of law is not enough. In my opinion, we will have to keep holding these social networks accountable for everything that's toxic and addictive about them. Whether it's doom scrolling, infinite scrolling, or all the retention mechanisms that increase the addictive effects of these social networks. To sum up, this ban is interesting because it will allow future generations to have their early childhood and childhood without social networks, to discover them later on. Let's remember there are also upsides to social media. And just because today's teenagers get around this ban doesn't mean we should throw all these projects away. Of course, there's still the problem we mentioned in a previous episode. Are age verification systems the end of anonymity on the internet? Because that's also something dangerous.